Welcome to this week's Archaeology News. I'm headlining with a research paper about the exciting possibility that more than 10,000 earthworks are hiding in the Amazon underneath the forest canopy. I then talk about Neolithic submerged stone structures in Lake Constance and the discovery of carbon-based Paleolithic paintings in the Dordogne region of France. Thousands of pre-Columbian earthworks may be hidden in the Amazon. In the pre-Columbian Amazon between 1500 and 500 years ago, indigenous communities created complex societies that modified their landscape for water management, domesticated plants and trees, developed fisheries, and increased the fertility of soil, all of which contributed to a more productive environment. They also created huge earthworks such as ring ditches, plaza villages, road networks, and geoglyphs. It's thought that the ring ditches played a defensive role and that the geoglyphs had a ceremonial purpose. Field surveys and orbital optical satellites have been used in the past to identify domesticated areas of the Amazon, but these are obviously limited in their scope. On-site work is labour-intensive and expensive, and orbital satellite surveys work best in deforested areas. Over recent years, LiDAR has become increasingly beneficial to research teams who have used it to pinpoint areas of archaeological interest all over the world. I've done a couple of videos about its use in Mesoamerica. A recent paper published in the journal Science outlines research into previously unidentified earthworks discovered in the Amazon using this LiDAR technology. It then estimates, using archaeological data and statistical modelling, how many other similar structures may be hidden under the vast forest canopy. Unfortunately, the paper isn't open access. I have, however, read an article by the same authors that summarises the research, so I'm going to report on it here using that information. It's not under a Creative Commons license, so I can't publish any of the images or diagrams. Instead, what you see in this video are images of earthworks in the Amazon from other open sources. These are captioned within the video and referenced in the description below. The study was carried out by a team of 230 experts led by Brazilian researchers Peripato and Aragaio. Peripato is a PhD candidate in remote sensing from the National Institute of Space Research. Aragaio is head of the Earth Observation and Geoinformatics division at the same institute. They were able to use data from surveys that had originally been carried out to estimate above-ground biomass in the Amazon forest. 3D models of the Amazon beneath the forest canopy had been created using LiDAR sensors mounted on an aircraft. This data covered 5,315 square kilometers, and by analyzing it, the team were able to identify 24 previously unknown structures in the states of Mato Grosso, Acre, Amapá, Amazonas, and Pará, in an area covering just 0.08% of the Amazon. These were made up of a fortified village, defensive structures, ceremonial complexes, megalithic architecture, crowned mountains, rectangular and circular geoglyphs, and riverine sites. Prior to this study, 961 earthworks had been identified in total. By the team's initial estimate, more than 41,000 earthworks could exist in the Amazon. However, since the domesticated landscapes that have been discovered so far are not distributed evenly throughout the region, the team developed other statistical methods to fine-tune this calculation. They now think there may be as many as anywhere between 10,272 and 23,648 earthworks in the Amazon, and that these are likely to be found in the southwest. They also identified 53 domesticated tree species that are connected to earthwork construction. None of this comes as a surprise because there have been some incredible finds to come out of the Amazon over the years. Whether you support his work or not, Graham Hancock did bring focus to the region in his book America Before. He's talked a lot about the earthworks, these giant geoglyphs, and also the terra preta. Terra preta, also called dark earth, is an anthropogenic soil that's had charcoal, bones, and pottery sherds added to it to make it more fertile. Once again, like many structures in the ancient past, the role the geoglyphs played in the lives of the ancient indigenous inhabitants of the Amazon is unknown. The plant domestication and land management techniques are still preserved amongst communities there today. But why their ancestors built huge geoglyphs isn't clear. There's also an intriguing stone monument in the state of Amapá that's often referred to as the Amazon Stonehenge. This structure is a 30-diameter circle made up of 127 blocks of granite, some of which are as much as 4 meters tall. It sits on a hill overlooking the Rio Grande River. The site is called the Solstice Archaeological Park because it's thought the structure was used for astronomical and ceremonial purposes by the ancient inhabitants of the area, much the same as is hypothesized for Stonehenge. Its official name is APCA 18 if you're ever trying to look it up. As I said at the beginning of the video, the time period being discussed in terms of domesticated landscapes in the Amazon goes back to between 1500 and 500 years. However, groups have been living in the Amazon for more than 12,000 years. One of the most interesting finds dating back to around 12,500 years ago during the last ice age is the set of prehistoric rock art known as the Sistine Chapel of the Ancients. In 2017, tens of thousands of anthropomorphic and zoomorphic paintings were found on cliff faces in La Serranía de Mendoza in Colombia. The art was dated based on the red ochre images of Ice Age megafauna that are now extinct, such as the paleolama, the mastodon, giant sloths, and Ice Age horses. Other images show fish, lizards, birds, plants, humans, and geometric patterns. Intriguingly, some of the people depicted look as though they are dancing, and one person appears to be wearing a mask shaped like a bird. Some of the research has been published, but since there are tens of thousands of images, work on the rock art will continue for many years. As you can probably guess, the geoglyphs are my favorite ancient structures in the Amazon. They remind me of henge monuments in Europe and the Nazca lines in Peru. What were the ancient inhabitants of the Amazon doing in them or around them or with them? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll do some more videos on research papers about the Amazon because I've been reading quite a lot of published material over the past few weeks. And I found a lot of things I didn't know before, and they're all incredibly interesting. So I'll do some more work on that. Archaeologists explore submerged Neolithic structures in Lake Constance. In 2019, archaeologists discovered piles of stones at a depth of between 4 and 6 meters under Lake Constance. At the time, it was referred to as the Swiss Stonehenge. Later research by the Archaeology Office of the Swiss canton of Thurgau confirmed that the stone piles had been artificially created since they sat on top of post-glacial banded lake deposits, so had not been transported as glacial debris. The Bavarian Society for Underwater Archaeology is now carrying out a study into these stone structures. There are more than 200 stone piles in total, which would have required 80,000 tons of rock to be transported for their construction. One of the piles, which is located between Lindau and Wasserburg, was dated between 3,500 and 3,200 BCE, so firmly in the Neolithic. This means it's one of the largest prehistoric sites in Europe. However, it's not clear what the function of these piles was. The leader of the team, Tobias Federer, has suggested that the stone piles could be platforms that were connected to cult practices on the shore of the lake. Several other researchers support this hypothesis. Photographs have been taken of a cluster of piles near Reutenen so that a photogrammetric analysis can be carried out. The latest articles on the stone piles do not have photographs, so what I'm showing in the video are ones taken during previous investigations of the site. Carbon-based prehistoric cave art found in France. Much of the cave art in the Dordogne region of southern France is thought to have been painted during the Magdalenian period between 17,000 and 12,000 years ago, but the minerals used to create the images cannot be dated directly. However, a recent paper in the journal Scientific Reports has announced the discovery of charcoal-based cave art, which opens up the possibility of using radiocarbon dating in the future. There are more than 200 caves containing Paleolithic art in the Dordogne, and this was predominantly made using pigment from iron or manganese oxide-based materials. However, in 2020, a team working at the Fonte Boa cave, which is also known as the Bison Cave, found carbon-based drawings underneath some of the paintings created using iron or manganese oxide. Since the cave is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the team were not allowed to take samples directly, but instead used non-invasive methods such as visible light and infrared photography, portable X-ray fluorescence, and portable micro-Raman spectroscopy. Due to the superimposition of images upon others, the team hypothesized that there had been 2 creation periods for the cave art. This still doesn't give exact dates, but it provides further insight into one of the richest areas of Paleolithic rock art in Europe and opens the way for further research. That's it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. A big thank you goes out to my patrons and channel members for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.